cool. And we're live. Joe, how you doing? Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited for you to kick this off.
Yeah, you are podcast number two. So happy to have you on. We have had you on the newsletter in the past, and I wanted to have you on the podcast to kind of do a deeper dive and explore and just talk to you and kind of learn more about you, where you're building, past everything. I mean, you're the American dream, right? When you talk about the American dream, that's you. So, I mean, for people who may not know, maybe you can kind of give that story because when you told me the first time we talked, I was like, this is literally the American story, the American dream. My bad, American dream.
Yes, totally. No, it's definitely the American dream. I think there are multiple times during even like every day where I'm so grateful to be in America and all the opportunity it provides. And for context, my family and I escaped from the Soviet Union when I was 9 years old. Growing up, I thought my life was going to be a good communist boy and grow up and serve the party of Lenin. And but it's just amazing how life takes you in a direction you never would have thought. But what happened as a result of that, which I'll get into a second, is I think it certainly set me up for being an entrepreneur in many ways because the similarities that you never know where being an entrepreneur can take you, and it has highs and lows, and you have to be prepared for unexpected challenges. I think it served me well. Um, when we left with a suitcase, a red suitcase, um, with clothes. And, the other thing is for context, like this is before the internet. This is before knowing anything in a world
What
where
year was this?
this is 1989.
Okay, wow.
So it's still Soviet Union. And as far as I knew, Soviet Union was going to last forever. As far as I knew, it was going to last capitalism. And that's all I knew. And it's kind of a sign of how bad things were that my parents decided to like literally leave their jobs, leave everything to go into the unknown. For them, they describe it as if they were going on a mission to Mars,
Yeah,
like just complete unknown. And the thing is, growing up, we were told that, in America, people will stab you for a nickel. Capitalism was described as just, complete lack of protection, complete um, worst of humanity. Um, but it kind of shows you what we were seeing on the ground in the Soviet Union. We still decided to take that risk.
wow.
And we lived in a refugee camp in Italy for a long time, with not, not that many amenities, slept in our clothes. I mean, we were basically homeless for the time we were there, slept in our clothes. Uh, Kids would go wash cars at red stoplights for money. Uh, you know, I will say my parents, they always loved us. And I think it's only later that I realized how crazy of an experience it was because going through it, again, that's kind of all I knew and that was my normal.
Yeah,
And then when we came to America, we lived on welfare for a long time, on welfare and food stamps. I do think that ultimately that experience not only helped me being an entrepreneur, I think now working in healthcare and ultimately getting into startups, becoming co-founder of HIMS and now the CEO of Dutch, I think I'm acutely aware of people not having access to care and making decisions of do I, you know, do I buy this peanut butter spread or, do I have the medicine that I need and like really making those trade-offs. And so I think Dutch today it's just been kind of the culmination, the height of everything of my background and bringing healthcare to people who otherwise, uh, you know, prior to Dutch, many dogs, cats probably would die and suffer when there isn't easy, affordable access to care. And so it feels just incredibly satisfying to be building Dutch. Today, the way that Dutch works is um, pet owners come to us and they'll have a video call, kind of like this.
Yeah.
And 25% of the time, the owner is in tears, like crying, because their dog is actually seeing a vet for the first time, like ever in that pet's life. It's crazy.
Wow.
Uh, I think
That's interesting.
it's worse than the veterinary shortage, the cost. I think like you read about it, to see it live, how it affects actual people. It feels so cool and awesome that I built a service that's helping people save money and get affordable care. And again, it certainly touches me personally, given my experience.
Yeah. I mean, I had my dog, this genius, like maybe a month ago, I was walking her and she decided to just, she saw this thing on the ground. I'm like, what is that? Before I even managed to do anything, she ate this thing. And then I realized it was gum. So I go to Google. I'm like, is gum toxic? And obviously, it's one of the worst things they can possibly eat. So I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have like $1,000 in fees right now. I'm gonna have to go to the vet. This whole scenario is going through my mind. And luckily, it was good that I could find. We have a vet that I kind of know, and she said, look, as long as the thing is chewed up, it's fine because the xylitol is not like potent
Yeah.
anymore, I guess. I was like, but that could have been, you know, hundreds of dollars, if not more, just to go to some vet, the process, the whole thing. So
Same,
yeah.
yeah. I had my dog. I swear, I'm in my office and I thought was having a seizure, and it went away. So I was like, oh, but it went. And then it was happening again and again. When things happen, you kind of you're in shock and you don't know what to do, and so he's having these seizures, and I'm like, oh man. So I use Dutch, and again, the power of actually having someone who knows what they're talking about, and right, it happened right there and then, like because you can get an appointment right away, um, and I showed them the video of what's happening, and they're like, oh, it's called reverse sneezing, which is
Oh
totally
yeah.
common and normal.
Yeah.
And I thought
My
he
pug
was
does
having
that
a
a lot.
seizure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
It
went
is
from
alarming the
and
first time you see it.
yeah, yeah. I'd never seen it in my life. And I thought he's like convulsing, and it's totally normal. She showed me videos that, because again, like you don't know what you don't know. So like for me on Google, like I couldn't even know where to start on Google,
Hmm.
other than like my dog is having a seizure. What do I do?
Yeah.
And yeah, same thing. I just saved hours of my day. I saved an ER visit. Um, like incredible. And our service is $100 for a year of unlimited calls for up to
Wow.
5 dogs, or yeah, up to 5 pets. So it's like I just saved myself $1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Peace of mind.
You did touch on something earlier that it's kind of embarrassing that it didn't even dawn on me. Which is like people getting their first ever access to vet care through Dutch, because I've always viewed Dutch as like a complimentary service, right? Because there's certain things that you can't get your dog's teeth cleaned or blood
That's right.
work or
Yeah.
things like that,
Right.
right? But
Right.
it is like perfect for those scenarios. Like, hey, I'm concerned about these things, very visual oriented.
Yep.
And you can get prescriptions, which is, I think, makes it even 10x more valuable, which is so cool. But that is so fascinating. I wonder, like, is that a big part of the marketing at all ever, with which is like first time getting access to people who've never been able to see a vet? Like I didn't even that didn't even dawn on me, where I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course. Like some people don't even, like, aren't able to chip their dogs, or not able to chip their cats or whatever, and so like of course they probably can't even see a vet.
Totally. We actually see that 50% of our customers say that they haven't seen a vet in years, over 50%. And then the
Wow.
other thing that happens is two-thirds of the time, the calls are happening on nights and weekends. So even if you have a vet, the vet's closed. And, another common example is it's the weekend and there's an eye infection, ear infection. And again, it's like, do I go to urgent care or do I wait till Monday? But the thing is, that sucks because by Monday, it's going to get all that eye infection, ear infection, diarrhea, like all these things. Like, you
Yeah.
got to take care of it ASAP. And so even if you have a vet, like, unless they're your buddy, your best friend, you have them on cell, they're not going to be available. And again, Dutch, you'll have a call same day, oftentimes like same hour, and then the medication can be sent to your local pharmacy if for something that's urgent, and you got it taken care of. So it's definitely an awesome deal for things that aren't like the wellness exam, like you said, the vaccine, the things that you do where it doesn't kind of really matter. But if you have kind of like you're in a pinch, you don't have it's night, but also like with that's like it could easily take you 2 weeks, just to
Oh
get in.
yeah.
And so again, you're like, I don't have 2 weeks. I gotta take care of this now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there.
Um, yeah, definitely been there. I'm interested. So before we touch on, because we want to talk about Dutch a lot, but kind of want to go back to you get to the U.S. You're how old?
So we left at 9. By the time we got here, I was 10 years old.
What are your thoughts? Like you've been for 10 years. I'm assuming you've kind of, you grew up in Uzbekistan, right?
Oh yeah.
Kind of persecuted minority, you're Jewish, and then you
Yeah.
get to the U.S.
Yeah.
and
Can I show you in my office? I have to show you this picture of me
okay,
just because a picture is worth 1,000 words.
okay,
Oh my gosh, let's see it.
I love
So
pictures.
this is me. Here, you can see it.
Yeah, I can kind of see it. There's some glare,
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
seeing
got a nice
myself in the.
sheen to
I'm
it.
seeing
Yeah.
myself in the picture.
Oh, there
Yeah.
we
See,
go.
Oh, there
There
we
we
go.
go.
There we go.
Wow. What a stud.
and so like a level of brainwashing, like today we think about like North Korea, I think is like the closest equivalent. But
Hmm.
in school, you wear this little pin, and it's a pin of Lenin, who is the founder of
Yeah.
Yeah.
communism. And as you age in school, the pin has him growing older as well. Like it's kind of
That's
fucked up,
crazy.
but
Yeah.
that's how that's like the level of brainwashing that happens. And of course, every song,
Wow.
story, movie, in school, all the imagery is Lenin.
Yeah.
There's no honor roll. There is, these students exemplify Lenin. Like everything is about Lenin. I wore this uniform. You wear a red scarf that I ironed every day. Like it is very like you're in the military, but this is the
Yeah.
entire nation is like that.
Nations, like many nations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now,
At the
right?
time, it was yeah.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
one. But yeah, now
One
Yeah.
they're
big
like
lump.
15. So coming to America, I will say it sort of. So on the one hand, I mean, look, those first years were tough because I we were poor, and I also all culturally just totally different. We don't wear sneakers. In the Soviet Union, people wear sandals. Um, you don't wear shorts. You'll always wear pants. Of course, I had the thickest Russian accent because I didn't know any English at all. My mom and I had a dictionary translate things word for word for word.
Wow.
But uh, and look, the corollary, like the lesson of all this is I have become ultimately today comfortable being uncomfortable, comfortable being an outsider, and I'm okay with that. And that's kind of what I've had to do with Dutch, with hymns, where we're changing the law, we're changing the norm. I get attacked for that. But again, I've now had this crazy experience. I came out of it. And so I sort of have the thick skin to know it's going to be okay. Um, but yeah, it's a crazy experience. Like I said, not knowing the language, having to learn the culture, the customs, and then like being on welfare and the food stamps that we had, figuring out like, do I buy this? Do we have milk today, or do we spend too much money on something else? And we got to have water instead. Eat
Yeah.
oatmeal with water instead of cereal with milk today.
Wow. My
Does
God.
does that become well, I guess there's two questions. One is, does that kind of become a superpower later on where you build those calluses early on? And then, that, because that translates into entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship, unlike what the media tries to portray it kind of sucks a lot, and then eventually it's good if you're lucky, versus, you're just rolling in kind of gold coins all day, which some like to portray it as. And then, yeah, maybe just answer that one
Yeah,
first, and I'll roll into the next one.
yeah, 100% agree. I think that ultimately, I went to business school, to Wharton, and I will say that's kind of like where I discovered really entrepreneurs. But I do think that even, a lot of people don't become entrepreneurs because it's risky as hell. And
Hmm.
they have a good life and they can't imagine uh, taking those risks. I think for me, for better or for worse, I've had nothing. I've been poor, and like I said, I know I survived it, and so I think that does give me a feeling and edge that I can just take a lot more risk. And I'm comfortable with that. But having said that, I agree with you. It's not a rosy hill because up until before hymns, like life was shit, and we're still, we had trouble figuring out how we're going to pay rent. So it wasn't a rosy story. But I will say, I did it because I love being an entrepreneur. I love figuring things out for the first time and creating something out of nothing. And I had opportunities where I could have gone, worked for, Google, and had a safe job. And it wasn't my calling card. Like it wasn't what I felt like that made me happy, that I needed and wanted to do.
So that kind of ties into the next question, which is, depending on the immigrant group, whether they're coming from China or India or Russia or anywhere else, like usually there's like these set jobs, right, that the kids kind of follow, whether it's doctor, accountant, whatever it is, not usually starting a company like Hims, right? Like how did that happen? I guess the kind of story of Hims, and how did that
Yeah.
happen?
So I also was kind of in that first camp. I went to um, Berkeley, went to Haas, and I had to pay for school myself. So I was on the road I had jobs, I got scholarships, and this was me trying to get out of here as quickly as possible and to make a job that makes the most amount of money as possible. And for that, it meant I ended up getting a job as an investment banker in New York for JP Morgan. And at that time, I thought, I made it. It's JP Morgan. It's this premier investment bank. I'm on Wall Street. And uh, I think I was so miserable because, first of all, it's a grind of a job. Um, I think the type of person I am, while I'm good at numbers and finance and logic, I'm also creative. I don't like authority. I want to create my own rules. I want to be my own boss.
Mhm.
These things don't line up with anything but entrepreneurship. And I think I just, as I grew up and saw the world and, because again, I had such a narrow focus. I didn't even love, like people, I find Americans are, in college, it's like, oh, it's a time to explore and take a history class or an art class and, discover this, discover that. I didn't have that because I was on a road to finish and get a high paying job. And that's all I was there to do. And I think later, once I got the job and I did start to meet other people and start to explore the world, I think you realize, well, first of all, there's lots of ways to make money. It's not one way. Um,
Mhm.
but actually, for me, was again, like, what do I want to like? I have a lot more time to live. Like, what do I want to do here? And that's kind of where I went to business school. And I think I discovered my tribe, which is these other people who also had the audacity and the chutzpah to start something. And I think ultimately I just realized that like my characteristic is kind of what like that's what these people are about. And I think and from there back to California, I worked for startups. I think being in the Bay Area ecosystem, you meet people, and ultimately through those relationships is how I met the Atomic team, which is the incubator which HIMS started out of. And again, HIMS in a way was like many of the other ideas. There's an idea on a whiteboard, but at that point I already had like 15 years of startup experience. So you then learn through trial and error the signs that need to exist for a startup to be successful. And I just, for a variety of reasons, the people, the size of the market, opportunity, uh, I think from the very beginning, I thought it was going to be successful. I think it's turned out even more successful than I imagined. Um, but I think actually one of the many things that him's taught me is to dream big and dream bigger than you ever imagined. Like today, Elon Musk talks about going to Mars, and sometimes that may seem crazy, and then it becomes reality. I think there's like even a Nike commercial I love, like it's only crazy until you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you do it,
I
and
was
now and everyone's like, oh, that's normal.
I was recently working with this guy who he said one thing to me. We were talking about building some AI agents, and he said one thing to me that I always like kind of jokingly say back to him, but I'm like starting to believe it, which he was like, Colin, I want you to remove all limiting beliefs when it comes to these AI agents. Like, I want you to just don't set up ego, don't put up these barriers, these walls. Like, what is like the ideal scenario for you? And we will work towards that. Because, yeah, I think people are, it's so easy to find exits, right? Like, easy things, plan Bs to just kind of rest on those laurels and be like, this is like more pragmatic or practical. But it's
Totally,
always amazing when not only do you hit your target, but then it, supersedes it, which is great.
totally, totally. And again, I think the experience I've had, which kind of shows that like life can end up taking you in a direction you'll never expect, and I've allowed that freedom to just happen, as opposed to, yeah, like you're saying, create a limitation to where it could go, because then you aren't creative, you aren't dreaming big. And I think that's definitely a superpower coming into and starting Dutch.
Yeah, I think that's what's really cool is like it seems like not to bucket you or label you, but you're like an opportunist, right? It's like an opportunity. It hits like you're in this certain realm of your life, right? Like you did hymns and then you have a dog and you have an experience, and this window of opportunity opens up for yourself, and you're like, yeah, like I think this is something that's feasible and that I want to, tackle. And so that's what I love about that is like I always love people's resumes, like mine included, where it's just like peppered with different disciplines and industry because you
Yep.
see opportunity, you have passion, you're adding value, you know how to connect the dots, and you're willing to take that risk. So I would be interesting to learn about how you bridge that gap from, all right, hymns, it's popping off, and now I'm gonna totally pivot and go over to Dutch.
Yeah. I so hymns, at the end of it, I got to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell, and for me, man, that's gonna be like on my gravestone. That's like one of the highlights of my career,
Very cool.
and yeah, and like couldn't be more American dream that I had a chance to start a public company. There's only like a couple thousand public companies in the United States, period.
Mhm.
To be someone that took a company from when it was literally nothing to go public, it's very cool.
Need to
Having
put a
said
picture of
that,
you as a little boy next to a picture of you
I
ringing the
know
bell.
that's
That's like the
that's right.
transformation.
That's
That's
right.
incredible. That's so amazing.
It's super cool, and only in America. Like this would only happen in America. I think, like another layer of this is being Jewish. And in the Soviet Union, as a Jew, we would be third class citizens. Just doesn't matter how smart or opportunistic or anything, that would never, it's just period. It's not going to happen. And I think, again, it's being an immigrant, being Jewish, like all these things, that I think it's so unique that this can happen in America. And, but I felt like, okay, I kind of reached the end of the rope there because then we're back to cruising. And I'm someone who is going to go back and start something from nothing. I find a lot more satisfaction, a lot more opportunity than sitting around flipping my paycheck. Uh, and so it was like, okay, it's time to start something else. I think the other thing is for me, I've sort of now I've seen the heights of something. I wanted to take it and do it my way because at HIMS I was a co-founder, I wasn't the CEO. And I wanted to, at this point, I have 3 kids, I'm older, I've now been around startups for 20 years. I wanted to really be intentional around culture and around the type of company that I wanted to build. Like not just what we do, but how we do it. And
Yeah.
I have been around many entrepreneurs who, we hear who are just, toxic or the means, the ends justify the means. Like that just wasn't me. It goes back to like how I was saying initially, there's lots of ways to make money. Well, there's lots of ways to be an entrepreneur. And I really wanted to take the lessons along with what I saw as like what I wouldn't do, and me taking kind of notes all that time and thinking about, okay, I want to build a company that does something good, but also how we do it is also different than what I've seen in the past.
Doggies.
Yeah.
On
I feel
cue.
like every episode we have a dog barking. I think that
We
just
have
kind
to
of should
have
be
it.
our thing. Yeah, that should just be our thing
It's
every
our
episode
Easter egg.
now.
You gotta listen to the whole thing to
Yeah.
find when at what time do the dogs go nuts.
If only my dog barked. But yeah. I so again we talked in the past, and I think for those who may not know the brand, it's almost like you're downplaying it. Like this was still is, I guess, to an extent. But I remember at the time I lived in New York, and Hims was everywhere. I would see it. I would see the ads on the subway. It was just everywhere. I was like, what is this brand out of nowhere? Just And it was kind of like a juggernaut at the time. It's still a massive company, obviously, but like, what is that experience being on that rocket ship? Not a lot of people get to be part of like this or build a massive company that seemingly comes out of nowhere and just kind of, just is part of the conversation day to day. All of a sudden it's like, oh, did you see that? Like in New York, it's a very trendy place, right? Like every few weeks, there's this new company, this new trend, this new whatever that pops up, and everyone's talking about it. And you were kind of that for a minute, right? Like, what is that experience like?
I think to one thing, and I think translates into Dutch, is that it's going to be, first of all, I think you have the marketing, but you have to have the results and the service that backs it up in order to be something that's long standing and maintained and actually derives that value.
Mm-hmm.
And we were always about creating actual solutions as opposed to being a gimmick or being kind of a lot of talk, no action. And I think, again, that same translates into Dutch. Before him started, lots of other companies wanted to get into men's wellness, men's health, but it just felt kind of cosmetic or just, oh, I'm not sure if these things actually worked. With Hims, because so much of it is medicine, which has an FDA approval, which means that, it actually works and there's results. I think that's kind of that final thing that creates the umph behind the marketing. And then, and then conversely, kind of from the other end, we took something that was, Viagra, that was like spammy and taboo and kind of had like a weird vibe attached to it, and we made it cool and beautiful and something people felt normal to talk about. So it kind of came both ends. I think that in the middle of it, being on that ride, you're just, I mean, again, for me, like the way I am, like every day could be my last day. So this day has to be better than the day before. And so I think we never thought, oh, this is awesome. Can't you believe we got this far? I think, no, we just said, okay, we have to like do even better and better and better. What else can we do? How else can we push the envelope? How else can we add, fun to the, so I think it was only something that pushed us to do more and dream bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger every day.
And then you step down. What year from Hims?
2021.
It's the same year that you started Dutch,
Yep.
but you
No,
didn't have
Wow.
Dutch in mind when you stepped down, right? There was like a gap, and then Dutch kind of just the idea came to you, or you already when you left you knew this is something you want to pursue.
yeah, I don't like no rest for the weary. I think
Clearly.
I already had Dutch in mind. It, I left and I sort of spent 6 months putting it together before we actually launched it. But I already was like, I'm going to work on it. I mean, I think even whether it's Hims or Dutch, I think about it all the time. And look, part of it is I love it. I love what I do. I love being an entrepreneur. I love helping people. I love creating access. Like, I love it. Like, I wouldn't, it's not something that, like, again, like investment banking where you work till, yeah, the crack of dawn and you kind of hate it and it sucks. If I'm working late, I love it. And so I think I was always thinking about what's next, what's going to make me happy, what's going to make an impact. And so I sort of had the contours of Dutch already, uh, which I think was ultimately the impetus for like why I left, because I was a lot more excited to work on this next opportunity.
So
I
you
mean,
get the
you
idea.
go ahead,
Or go
Colin.
ahead, Roy. Okay. So you get the idea for Dutch, right? Which I think you've shared part of that story before publicly, which you could touch on. So you get the idea for Dutch. You say it's like 6 months, right? Roughly to build this out. Like, walk us through just what does that game plan look like? Is it just you and now you're like, okay, here's my idea. I need someone to help me like build out the systems flow for this of how this can work into like, an MVP web-based app that we're going to do this. Like I know some vets, like how did you string that together? Because it's no small feat again, Dutch comparing to Hims. Like there's a lot of moving pieces, getting vets, getting the system, customer support. Like there's so much there. So like how did you get from that 0 to 1 in that 6 months, before launching?
Yep. Part of it, to take a step, like, look, I think part of it is, look, I've done it, so I sort of in my mind know the playbook. But on the other hand, I kind of compare, like, part of it's just mental, where if you're trying to, like, as an athlete, beat your time or go faster, you just have to say, like, I got this, I can do it. I can do it even faster. Versus if you're doing something and you're already quitting before you start by saying, like, I'm tired, it's not my day, this is too much, what I do. Like, something about it is just mental. So I think in the beginning, I just always knew I knew I could do it. I've done it before. I'm going to do it again and better. So I think part of it is like, I didn't necessarily overthink, oh, there's like 100 things
Yeah.
I have to do and here's the plan to, like, I just was like, this is good. I kind of like checked, is there enough? On the legal side, is there an opportunity here? Is there demand? Is there an opportunity here? And then I just started building. So I recruited a medical director. I recruited a chief technology officer with the right kind of e-commerce consumer profile. And from there, we brought Red Antler that did a lot of our design work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Forerunner Ventures, which was one of the first VCs into HIMS. I think they're one of the preeminent consumer VCs out there. They wrote a seed round check and just got going from there.
How big was that
Wow.
check?
$5 million.
Is that the one where Jimmy Fallon was part of it?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
That's great branding, right? That's good marketing. When you Google anything regarding Dutch, Jimmy Fallon's one of the
Jimmy
first things
Fallon's
that
face.
comes up. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, look, you get opportunities for sure. I will say this, like you said initially, it's never as rosy as like it comes out in PR
Mhm.
because on the one
That,
hand,
that that's the job of PR to make it look
yeah,
rosy.
like, is it easier for me now to raise capital? Like, yeah, it's easier, but it's also easier because I know what I'm doing and like, there's like a reason why.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
at the same time, did I show up and someone wrote me a check? Like, absolutely not. I still had to hear a ton of no's, prove out why, like we could sit here and say, oh, the pet market's huge, like, and there's not that many telemedicine companies serving it, like, no brainer. No, because by the way, VCs are trying to make a huge return and they have lots of opportunities, especially today with AI. Um, like, there's lots of ways they could invest that capital. So it's never, one thing I'll say is I never felt like anything is easy.
Mhm.
Everything is in my head. I'm like there's no free lunch. Anything
Yep.
good is going to take hard work. But I will say that it probably was easier than someone who's starting on day one. Again, I think that's fair because that person probably doesn't know what they're doing as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the easy part is interesting. It's like there's a lot like even starting the newsletter or media company, it's like on its face, it's like, yeah, this is just simple. I just start this thing, I write about it, and people will just flock to me, right? And it's like, sure, the idea is simple, but the execution is not. So getting people to be interested in you when the competition is endless and there's a million other things grabbing their attention, but I have to grab their attention for that split second and hopefully that get them on is not easy. So
Yeah.
nothing's easy. Not like that's why when I don't know, I just hear a lot of stuff on the internet about people, with their be rich in 3 easy step type courses, and it's like it's don't buy that, please don't buy that. It's crap. It really is, because it's always hard, it's always a slog, it's always time, money, your health, your well, everything just goes into it, and if you're
Yeah, or
lucky,
else everybody would
it
doing
goes
it.
really
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So if it was easier to do, everybody would do it.
for
100%.
sure.
Yeah.
One,
Have you raised
I
any
have two.
money since? Sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah. So we've now raised 43 million in total, and we raised
In
Series
how many
B.
rounds?
Uh, we had a seed, an A, and a B.
Okay. 43. It's a good amount. When was the last raise?
October of 23.
And was the impetus of that for like expansion marketing? Like, what was kind of the big push? Like, was that prescription? Like, I'm not sure when you launched prescription. Like, what was the use of funds for?
Yeah, it's mostly for building out the team, engineers, and marketing. So, I mean, your two biggest sources of capital is
Yep.
payroll and marketing.
Mhm.
And I would say now, uh, what's different versus hymns is hymns, we raised over $500 million in 3 years. So we were raising
Gosh.
$50 million or so every quarter, basically. It's
I mean,
just
you
a
were spending
different
like 10 million on marketing per month, right? You told
yeah,
me?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Wow.
crazy.
So it's a different time. So look, I think it's made. I think the cohort of companies now are going to be more profitable. They're going to be good businesses in the long run. But yes, you build in a different way. I think in the end of the day, you got to pay the piper one way or another. Hims ultimately paid the price when they went public and they were unprofitable. Now, like about a year ago, when they became profitable, that's partially like why the stock has risen. So,
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, whether now or later, you got to build a profitable business. And I just think startups are being forced to be grown up businesses up front. I think that's good because it eliminates the gimmick businesses from getting more
Yeah.
money. I think it's a good thing for the long.
How many customers do you have present?
Uh, so since we launched, we've over 500,000.
Okay, wow. And that's
Is
primarily
that
US?
that's my question.
Yeah, we're
Well,
only in the US today.
only in the US. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you plan on expanding into other markets, like some of the bigger? I guess there's like a lot of pet ownership in Asia, but I guess even going to like Canada or staying in North America or anything like that.
Possibly. I think sometimes the problem is each state has its own set of legal regulations and both
Yeah,
in terms of what can be done with veterinary, and then you get into pharmacy regulations, and then if you're going to get into pharmacy, there's logistics. So I think like Dutch today, we have 30 employees, and uh, so we're a pretty small and nimble team, and
yeah,
we
that's
have to be
amazing.
really thoughtful about what we prioritize. So I think for now,
Wow,
we've been focused on the US.
that's great. 30 people servicing 500,000 furry-legged creatures. That's great.
Yeah.
That's a really good. That's a really strong ratio. Um, I have two more questions. Sorry, Roy, if you have something.
No, shoot.
But two more questions. What's your primary source of acquisition for again, like going back to like now thinking about people who are like, this is my first time going, like this is an easy, affordable way for me to see a vet versus like some other folks that might be in my camp where I'm like, God, I don't want to go spend $1,000 just for them to tell me it's reverse sneezing. Like
Yeah.
what's your primary acquisition for those?
It's I would say our mix has continued to evolve and grow. We are working with influencers today, and kind of the mid-sized influencers create an opportunity on customer education, because again, this is still like being able to talk to a vet online, being able to get a prescriptions. It's a new thing. So the
Yeah.
influencer community has been good around creating that kind of longer, more authentic education moments. At the same time, what you might have heard it there. We're starting to run television ads as well, so commercials, and then ultimately, though, a lot of times people are going to go to Google and type up "my dog is vomiting. What do I do?" We've
Yeah.
invested a lot in organic SEO, so we'll have lots of content written by veterinarians, but then on paid, like I said, so people, I think, usually it takes several touch points for someone to kind of connect the dots.
Right.
But I think between Google, as well as kind of in the supporting cast of video influencers, is kind of like how we get people to be aware and then ultimately come to Dutch.
Yeah. That's amazing. My last question, and then Roy, if you have anything, I know we're getting close on time, is since I've labeled you unsolicitedly as an opportunist,
Yes.
if you were not doing Dutch and it was in the pet space, what is a opportunity or a set of opportunities? Like, what's a thing that you were like, I would go tackle this. Like, this is an opportunity outside of the telemedicine.
So the first thing that comes to mind is insurance. Less
Mm,
than 3% of pet owners have insurance today. Less than 3%. Like 3% is a marginal. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
basically like it doesn't even exist. And I think that the what's done today, like there's that quote, like you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Like that's the definition of
Yeah.
insanity. I think that a lot of times insurance companies, they need to, but again, you got to take risks. You got to know that some things are going to fail. It could cannibalize something else, but on the whole, be bigger. But I think that is a huge opportunity to do things in a different way that, uh, like the market. If you look
Yeah.
in other countries, like in the UK, almost 30% of pet owners have insurance. And again, there's lots of reasons, which I call excuses, for why that is. But the reality is, there's no reason why it should be so low in the US. I think that's a huge opportunity as an opportunist, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It is definitely one I've thought about religiously. Um, as like it took me for a long time, like it was just kind of awareness. I was like, oh, that is a thing. This was years ago, and then once I realized it's a thing, I see there's several players, and then it's a race to the bottom. Like who can get the cheapest, like and with like the most coverage, right? There's no brand loyalty. Like I'm with Trupanion, but if like Dutch came to me, like say you offered insurance and you're like, hey, we can give you the same coverage for, but I'm like, done, because there's nothing
Yeah.
else that's like drawing me in. And to your point, there is like a lot of hoops to jump through, to like know if
Yes.
something's covered, and it's like I
Yes.
pay for it up front, get reimbursed, like it is almost as nightmarish, if not more nightmarish than human health
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, there has to be a way to do it
Yeah,
better. It's
I
not
like
gonna
that one.
like anything, it's not a one and done, but again, starting Dutch, you learn that you're gonna run thousands probably of A/B tests before you
Yeah.
like start, and A/B tests build upon each other. There, there has to be that culture in order to find, okay, what is it that can make this better? Uh, and that rigor and that startup mentality, I think, can certainly be applied to pet insurance.
I love it.
I mean, 3% is insane. Just because there's so many pet insurance companies, and the fact that they are all of them servicing only 3% of the pet population in the US. Like it can't be just price, right? It's got to be something else. It's got to be something else that
Well, I think
pet
that
parents in the US.
I think that's a broken product. I mean, I think
Yes.
that's like
It's a good way to put it.
you can't offer the same type of product, the same, and they're flavors of vanilla.
Yeah.
Something has to fundamentally change about not just the pricing, but how it works,
Yeah.
how it's bundled, how like something has to really change drastically for you to get out of that 3% level. Because if you talk to
Yeah.
insurance companies, I think they'll project excitedly that it'll maybe, in a couple of years get to 5%. It's like,
Yeah.
They raise the price on you if you don't go in early and like your dog has tartar on its teeth. That's a pre-existing condition which they no longer
right,
will cover anything, right? Like they're so and like the type of dog you have. So it's like if you're not I just adopted this less than 1 year old dog and like I'm also pre-aware of pet insurance, like you're already at a loss. Like if you're not in that
yeah,
scenario,
totally,
right? And then
yeah,
there's just
yeah,
like so many things that they don't cover for whatever reason. Like, oh, it's rainy on a Tuesday. That's one of the days we don't cover.
that's right, totally.
So
Which is
yeah,
then
there's
ultimately people don't get insurance at all because they're like,
yeah,
why
it's
pay?
what's the point, right? We got
Yeah,
lucky that we started so early, or else if like I got my 3 and 4 year old dog today, I wouldn't be doing it. Although it would
yeah,
benefit me in a lot of ways, it's just like I feel like it has to be the right accident, God forbid, that has to happen to my dog for me to get coverage.
yep, totally.
I think we just see potentially the future of Dutch.
That's right.
Yeah. Do it. Do it.
We
First
if we can
customer
cover
right
the
here.
breaking news, that'll be great. All
Yeah.
right, before I let you go, I just have one question. And I like to ask this not all the time, but it's just a question I'm interested in. What do you think about CEOs, founders being the face of the brand? Right, you got an extreme version, kind of Elon Musk-ish, where he is the brand, right, and for good or bad. But then there's others that kind of like just not do the podcast, not be the face of. They're just happy doing the day to day and growing the brand, but they don't want the two intertwined. Where do you stand on that?
I think I, I get red flags when there is ego or kind of chest thumping because that's for show, more about results. At the same time, I've also seen like someone has to be the face, and I've seen CEOs use other people as puppets for who the face is, and that can also be misleading to the public for who's actually calling the shots. So I think basically I'll to say there's sort of like maybe I'm a cynic too. There's reason to be sort of cynical of both sides. So I think it depends. For Elon Musk, I will say, look, the guy's proud of what he's doing, and I'll give him credit for that. Like I think that you're gonna take risks, you're gonna take the time, and you should be passionate about what this is because people who are working for you and partners who are coming to you are equally kind of betting on you. And I think you should be passionate about it. Like I said, if it starts to veer into this is a way for you to become famous, which I've also seen, and that's like starts to divorce itself from the product, then that's kind of I don't like that. But I think
Yeah.
if the excitement of the CEO has to do with the thing that they're building, I think that's cool. I think it shows that they're into winning and that they're authentic and that they're putting their mouth where their money is and that they believe in what they're doing. So I mean, in that sense, I think it's great. I think when it starts to separate from the product is when it starts to be not like a bad for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to put it. As long as it's authentic and this is what's driving the brand versus a way for the founder to just kind of get famous is, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Joe, we really appreciate your time today. This was a blast. Thanks for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thanks
Amazing.
for having me. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again
Appreciate
in the
it.
future. And go follow Joe. He's mainly on LinkedIn.
Yes, on LinkedIn. It's my only
Mainly,
social media platform today.
yeah. I might be doing that as well soon because others
Yeah,
aren't
trim
working
with
as
that.
well.
Love that.
Yeah. Again, appreciate your time. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, guys. Bye.